Om Shri Sai Ram, offering my most humble and loving salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan, Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Dear brothers and sisters, wish you all a very happy, holy, and a blessed Deepavali. On this beautiful occasion and an auspicious occasion, it is great privilege to bring to you another episode of his story through the eyes of his voice. Let us start this journey with our prayer and we take it forward. Please join me in the prayer. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it merge in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. Om Shri Sai Ram. This occasion of Diwali, obviously the world knows it as the festival of light. This auspicious occasion is in fact a celebration of union with the God. It is a celebration of realization that we are God Himself. It is a celebration when Ram, the supreme consciousness, returns to Ayodhya, a nine-gated palace, which is our body. It is the same day which is celebrated when Bharata becomes one with Ram. It is the same day, same occasion, when the evil represented by Narkasur was killed and destroyed by Krishna. So this occasion of Deepavali is a celebration of that supreme consciousness which allows this mergence of individual soul to the higher soul, and a unique message by our Lord, which his focus throughout his life journey was that. And today I'm happy to have Brother Sriranganatha Raju with me, who has come in this program before, but today it's a pleasure to have one-on-one conversation with him. So without any further ado, let me welcome Brother Sriranganatha Raju. Sai Ram, brother.
Sairam, brother. Sairam.
So we are going to take this journey forward, and I'm sure people have seen you, brother, in different sessions, but we never had an opportunity to hear from you directly and to know your perspective on Bhagwan and the journey. So today we have this good opportunity Bhagwan has given us that we can hear from you. So before I start, let me give a quick introduction of you again for the people who have not heard you before. Brother Sriranganatha Raju, he has been with Bhagwan in student from 1998 to 2007, where he did his schooling from higher secondary school, and then he went on to do his master's MA in economics, and then he did his MBA too. And presently he lives in Belampalli, a very small town in Andhra Pradesh, and he has his own company called Sanatan Analytics. He's a director in that company. Uh, Not further. So, Brother Vanga, thank you very much for accepting my invitation and joining us again.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for giving an opportunity to think and talk about Swami.
Wonderful. So let us start this journey quickly by my standard question and take the journey forward, because Avatar has a unique way of expressing himself to us and allowing us to learn about him. So how did that journey of Avatar started in your family? How were they introduced?
Uh, my grandfather was a very good poet in Telugu, and he had written various poems. And one such poem, we come from a place which was infected by Naxalism, and a lot of revolutionaries have come from this area. So he wrote poems mocking God, and in one such episode, he also wrote a poem which asks God. Apparently, an atheist is questioning God, and if you are around, tell me what is the secret of creation. Tell me how did it all begin and how did it all end. Tell me why there is so much of suffering. So questions like this, 7 questions go on. It's a Sisa Padyam in Telugu. So apparently, the communist is mocking the Lord, and then my grandfather, me as a small kid, my father, all of us end up going to Parthi in Parthi Yatra, which was conducted. Group of devotees had gone, we had joined them. In, and Swami begins his discourse with a line saying that in this group of devotees who have come from different parts of Andhra Pradesh, there is also a poet, and he questions God thus, and he literally paraphrases the poem of my grandfather, and then he goes on to mock back the communist in his discourse, saying that this is a question asked by the atheist, but let God answer that atheist in his own way. And then and third line was my grandfather sitting shell shocked, expressionless face, just literally gaping at Swami, frozen. I remember like kind of shaking him, asking, "Why are you so shaken up with this?" He had no words. His eyes were moist. He just folded his hand and said, "I have seen God. I have seen Krishna." And from the discourse ends, and from there, Swami looks at him and Swami nods him saying that, "Did you get an answer?" Like this. That was the first introduction that we had with Swami. And my grandfather was literally a father figure in a family. He was the decision maker. It's a large extended family decision maker. And after he passed away in my 10th class, it felt like we were rudderless and we did not know whom to look up to. And that is when mysteriously, I mean, I would not say it is a planned way of getting an admission, but my father he had come for seva. Someone told him, "Why don't you apply for your kid?" He applied, and I got in, and that's how Swami brought me into his institution. My father, from then on, he has been coming on seva, and it's a very different story after that. That's the introduction of my family to the
So
Lord.
very, very interesting. So, how was your personal interest in joining the school, or did it make any difference because of the family culture?
Yes, initially it it felt that I was going to a place. People told me. I remember one of my relatives told me that, we hope that you don't become a sannyasi when you come back. And I had that fear that maybe I might be turned into a monk. So, and we were brought into the hostel the first day. For me, Swami was God because he had apparently God, not God in the sense. No, at that age of immaturity, I had different definitions of God, and someone told me it is para God and apara God. So those definitions seem very foolish now. But no, at that point of time, I appeared like the most read and a great intellectual walking into a campus which is of ignorant fools. So I was telling people that, let me explain to you what is the aspect of God, how God looks, and I remember warden tapping my shoulder and said, "Boy, you You have come to God. Just wait for days to pass. You know what God is. So, but anyway, uh, so I had come in, and for me, lot of respect for Swami was because he owned a BMW car, and and the first day when my father was leaving me, I mean, we had gone for this. The first interaction with Swami was he comes to me and looks at me. He widens his eyes and says, "Very, very, very good boy." I was so shaken up. I do not know why Swami called me so. What the reason? I do not know even to this day. But yet, it was such a loving. I would say I'm sorry for using the word, but gesture from the Lord that it just shook me. It caught me off guard. I did not know what to think of. Is he a man? Is he God? I did not know because he was so loving, so kind. And then we come back to hostel. My father was leaving the first time that I'm staying away from my family. As I told you, I had respect for Swami because he owned a BMW car. So that night, I was feeling quite homesick. I was crying, in fact. My father, he would leave in another 5-10 minutes. It's all dark around. I mean, it's just night getting darker. And one of the hostel teacher tells me that Swami is your mother, Swami is your father. Swami, lovingly patted you in the darshan also. Do not worry, he's there with you. And I was looking at that photo, and the way in which Swami said that very, very, very good boy. It was kind of resounding in my ears. That the way, the gesture, the way he raised his hand, the way he patted my back. It was as if you're seeing me after a long
So
time.
sweet. So sweet.
Yeah, and as if he
So
was waking up.
your adjustment to hostel was easy, or like how
Yes,
did you
so
find
that
joining the
night,
hostel?
Swami comes in my dream, and then he holds me by my hand and he takes me to each of the hostel rooms, and he introduces me to each of the teachers. And he took me. I remember he took me to the kitchen. You know, I come from a very small town called Bellampalli, and uh, we were not so advanced in our in our ways of living, I would say. So this flushing that was set up in hostel, in the lavatories, I was not aware, and I was feeling very embarrassed to ask anyone as to how do you flush the toilet. So, so I had my own difficulty in cleaning that thing. So that night, Swami comes to me, as I was telling you, he took me to each of the rooms and he takes me to lavatory. He shows how to flush the toilet. That particular way in which you have to hold and flush that knob.
So the
And then,
first night you get this dream,
yes, first night. And then
and in
we
the
end up
dream
in
he
front
gives
of
you a tour of hostel.
orientation. Yes, the first
It's
day.
an orientation program. My God. Okay.
And we end up in front of his car, and he shows me he's standing on his car like this on the bonnet, and he tells me go around. So I was going around, and I saw that BMW logo. I was so stunned. I looked at Swami, and Swami tells me how is the car. I said, Swami, it's very very nice. And next day, I thought, I got up and I knew the names of all the teachers. It just it seemed so natural. I felt maybe Sai Baba is a great sannyasi, that he through magic each one is given a separate unique. I never realized that's a very unique experience that I was having. I thought it's a common thing that every student in this hostel has. I did not even bother to check with others if they had such similar dreams. I took it for granted. And next day, as we were having breakfast, we heard someone shouting, "Swami is coming!" So all of us ran out. We were standing in front of the hostel gates, and Swami's car is just passing by. And as you are aware, the driver would intentionally slow down the car when students come. And some student who was standing behind me, out of sheer excitement, he pushed me. He pushed me in such a way that I went and fell on the bonnet, and that logo, I was right at on top of that logo. I was looking at that BMW logo, and that's the same logo which came on in my dream. I was so stunned, and the driver honked because it almost 2-3 seconds passed, and I got up. I come back, and Swami's car comes little ahead. Swami lowers the window pane, and he asks the same question which he asked me in that dream: "How is the car?"
So
I said,
sweet.
"Swami," I told Swami, "Very nice." Swami said, "No." He repeated the same answer that I gave him in that dream. He said, "It's very very nice." and I was stunned. The day when he opened that window pane, I felt it's something that got opened in my insides, and a different definition of God just started springing up slowly and steadily. It formed, and a different world opened up after that.
So sweet. See, in hostel, when you grow with the system, there are a lot of opportunities for, as we call it, self-reliant programs, and they allow you to not only develop your personality, but also has a unique way to connect with Bhagwan. So you can be in the kitchen and still connect with Swami. So, were you involved with any of the self-reliant programs?
Beautiful, yeah. I mean, it is as I was expecting that the divine hand runs through your questions. So I forgot to jot down this particular experience, but now your question brings back this beautiful memory. No, I come from a family which believes that men should not hold brooms. No, we should not
Ah,
sweep floor.
men cannot sweep floors.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and as a hostel culture goes, each one of us have to sweep our rooms on a regular basis. I kept avoiding mine. My self-reliance program was one of this, making sure that everybody cleans. No, so I kept avoiding. So our wing teacher noticed, and seventh day he made sure that I hold the broom and I sweep. I could not, because I did not dare telling him no. He was so scary to that 11th class boy. I said, "Sir, I will do." But I was so ashamed to do this that everybody went. I waited for everyone to go out for darshan. I closed the doors. I swept the entire room, and then I show that broom to Swami's photo, and then I tell him in Telugu. I tell him, నేను చేసిన ఘనకార్యం ఇది, like mocking. I was mocking, saying that this is a great feat. This is a great feat that I have done in your hostel. Look at it. It's basically, you imagine that cultural background that you're not supposed to hold a broom, and here I am holding a broom and sweeping the entire room and mocking back the god that I was told that your father and mother, but this is the great feat that I have done in your hostel. And then I run for darshan. I'm waiting for Swami to come. Swami comes straight to me. Then he starts creating vibhuti, and he asked me, marriage day, birthday. I said, no, Swami, no, Swami. Then he was putting that vibhuti in my hand. As he was dropping that vibhuti, he tells me, హాస్టల్లో చేసిన ఘనకార్యానికి మహాప్రసాదం రా. This
Oh
is
my God. Oh
for the
God.
great feat that you have done in a hostel. This is Mahaprasadam. I was so stunned. I wanted to pull out my hand, but I was so stunned, and I was looking at him. It was, I can't tell you what a feeling it was, but that day he just broke all the barriers into my heart. I mean, he just entered in.
For the great deed you have done in hostel, here is the Mahaprasadam.
People would come
Oh,
and ask. I remember teachers, warden, and my classmates, my own roommates were sitting next to me. He was the one who gave him the handkerchief to Swami. He was asking me, "What is it that Swami told you?" Because I had to edit that portion because I was quite embarrassed. I only told the birthday, marriage day, and edit these two lines. It took quite long, and only when Swami called me one day in PC, and then he told me, tell that experience. That is when I started narrating. And when I narrated this experience in Kulwant Hall, Swami is quite happy.
so sweet. When we talk about Avatar, God, and it is, of course, we have to use words which are very, uh, which can connote the supreme consciousness in a different way, omniscience, omnipotence, and you know. But then the beautiful part of being with Avatar is that these words become alive, and suddenly you realize that those words are not just words. He represents those words. So in your stories, I'm finding that how beautifully and subtly he has allowed you to experience that aspect of God. How did
See,
you, like, if I may ask you now, looking back, how would you describe your journey of exploring God.
It was one of the Yagyam days for Dashra, and these Ritviks was sitting on the on the second block right now where Sannidhi is. So on that spot, and right exactly in the middle where right currently Sannidhi is, there was a flower pot, and that pot had a plant, and there was a red flower blooming on top of the plant. Now it was steady. The plant was steady. The flower was steady, and we just came into Kulanth Hall. I was quite inquisitive as a 11th class boy. I wanted to know if that plant was a real one, if that flower especially was a real one, or is it an artificial one that was kept. It was quite attractive. I wanted to touch it, but we were sitting just 2 feet away from that flower pot. On the other side of the pot were the Ritviks. So the pot was kind of the differentiating line. It's a border.
Uh, Once again, the Ritviks is a Sanskrit word for those sages or those ascetics
Yes.
who perform homam and yajnam. So,
Yes.
so carry on.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So the priests who were supposed to perform that yajnam are
Perform the
sitting
yajna. Hmm.
on the other side of the pot, and this side of the pot were the students. I was in the first position, 1.1, as you would call in student language. So Swami comes out. So I was hesitating to touch the flower and the flower pot because Swami might emerge at any point of time, and Swami would not like students fiddling around. So I just I thought Swami would not come out, so I tried to kneel, and that is when Swami came out of the interview room. He kind of saw me settling back into my position, and Swami comes, and Swami is standing right in front of that flower pot, and he's folding his hands behind like this. He's like in the back. He's folding his hands.
Yeah. Sorry.
And since I was sitting at a position of vantage, I was able to see what is happening with Swami's hands in the background. So, and Swami was also searching for that flower. That is when I realized that even Swami wanted to check whether this flower is an artificial one or a real one. And behind, the fingers were literally searching. They were trying to imagine Swami is like this, and they were trying to search as to where the flower is. And the little finger of the Lord touched the flower, and he was just about to kind of cusp the flower. He was about to hold the flower as his fingers were closing in on the right. There is a Rutvik who was reading Devi Bhagavatam. He had a doubt about one particular word. He gets up and he showed Swami. As he was getting up, he asked question that Swami, this particular word, where did it come from? So this hand, Swami withdrew, and then he brought back and he put his hand on that Bhagavatam and was explaining. He read that line and he said, this particular word came from uh, Brahma, and it was given to Surya, then to Indra. And Swami explained that entire lineage and the antecedents of the word and the grammatical, etymologically, how the word is important. I was so stunned at the knowledge of the Lord. And as this entire thing is explained, and then he says, that particular word is this form. That sentence also he makes, and the Rutvik is stunned. And I was overwhelmed with that explanation. And as Swami finishes that particular line with that explanation, he brings back his hand again. He presses this flower. He presses it, turns to me and says, "Real flower." Like this, he says it's a real one, and he walked away. I was stunned. This experience stays with me for a lifetime, because here was the Lord who was able to give that Ritvik the entire wisdom of from a one simple lettered word, and on the other side was a kid. For me personally, it was not that Swami was not God because he was able to explain to the Ritvik. No, no. In spite of that, he is able to find time. He is able to resonate with my immature inquisitiveness if it is a real flower or not. The Lord who knew how that particular word emerged from Brahma, I'm sure he knows who in fact created that the flower and how it ended up there. But yet he took that time, he took that effort to play with me and to tell me this. It is a real flower. I think
But
this,
did you notice another beautiful thing, that his hand was at the back, so
yes,
there is no physical eye looking at the flower. So not
absolutely.
only he communicated your mind, but he also showed, once I had this experience, Swami did something from behind, and then he looked at me and he said, "Where am I, Ra? I have eyes all around me." So, so it was like you get shot, like, okay. So it's so sweet that he can see from, like, he shows you. So beautiful it is that he shows you these small, small bits. Wonderful. I'm sure these memories must really overwhelm each one of us when we think about it.
Yes, brother. Yes.
So, Raju, tell me, the most, I would say, if I have to, it's wrong for me to categorize or classify Bhagwan, but if I have to identify one important thing which hits us the most initially till we start experiencing other things, is his love. Now, to say pure love or unconditional love, it becomes redundant because his love is all of that. And that is one factor which really overpowers all of us. How was your experience from that perspective? How would you define or describe Bhagwan's love?
Uh, brother, as you have initially mentioned, that if you have to use one word for Swami, it is pure love and nothing else. Pure love, unsullied love. Now, two experiences come to my mind. One is one of the brothers, Swami was doing Upanayanam for us in 12th class. So we were sitting, he made us sit in this zigzag manner, one front, one back, one front, like that, zigzag manner. And he would ask the boy, each one, about when his parents would be coming. The boy who was sitting just before me had lost both of he is my 1 year junior. He lost both of his parents. He's an orphan. I mean, apparently, he's taken care by his uncle. Uh, so Swami was asking each one as to when their parents would be coming, and I was I was sitting just, I mean, after the boy. I was looking at this boy and his expression. I was thinking, what would Swami ask him? I mean, how would this boy respond? Would he tell that, Swami, I don't have parents? Would he tell that, Swami, you are my father, you are my mother? And slowly and steadily, this boy is, face is firming up. He's getting emotional. I can make out that it would be any time now his chance would turn up. And as expected, his turn came. Swami finished the boy before him. And Swami, when he looked at this boy, he looks deep at him and says, he not ask him when your parents are coming. He looks at me and tells that boy, I am your father and mother. I am doing your Upanayana. Do not worry. Ask your uncle to come. And then he looks at me and says, when are your parents coming? I was so, I, I did not know what to respond. And then I was blank. I was just looking at him. And then Warden prods me from behind and I answer. And then Swami makes a statement. He says, this life, this parents, but many lives, this parent. Swami shows himself like this parent,
So sweet.
always overlooking. And on another time, one of my classmates, he never wanted me to mention his name. He never wanted me to even talk about this experience. But after quite long persuasion, hiding the name of this particular brother of ours. He was coming back from after winter vacation. He's coming back from Chennai. So he boards the bus. There's an evening bus at 6 o'clock that starts from Chennai, reaches Prashant Nilayam at 6 in the morning, 12-hour journey. And in this particular APSRTC bus, as he boards in, he sees an 85-year-old woman sitting in the first seat. She's all alone. He thinks, why is this particular lady traveling to Puttaparthi, 12-hour journey without any assistance? But somehow he comes, he sits in his last few, one of the last row seats, and he dozes off. Around 12:30 in the night, 12:31, the bus was near Madanapalli, and he gets up. There's pungent smell in the bus, and there is a argument, heated argument that was happening. He was not able to understand as to what made this bus stop for such a long time in the particular bus station. He peeps out, and this driver is fighting with the depot uh, depot in charge. And bus was pungent smell in the bus, very bad smell. He did not understand what was happening, so he got up. He wanted to see where this smell is, what is the source of this. So he got up, and that is when he realized that this old woman who was sitting in that first line, in that first row, she passed because she's so old. She could not get up, so she passed her stools, and she also urinated in that seat. Because of that, the smell in the bus. And now the driver, that is when he understood the reason for this argument of the driver. Driver is arguing that this bus belongs to the management, so management should clean the bus. Well, the management says, bus, you are the owner, apparently the in charge of the bus. As the driver, you should be cleaning it. Why will we clean? And all around this lady were also other ladies who were actually kind of abusing her in their own ways, that she is shameless. And this boy gets up, he walks without hesitation. He walks, he just picks up that old lady, and as he is getting, and this he said, Swami, for me you are this lady, you are come in this form. And he gets out, he gets down, he starts walking towards those bathrooms. And that is when, one, this very pungent smell. He feels that, Swami, one stray thought passes that it's too bad smell, to too foul smell to wash. And second, she is a lady. At the end of the day, she is a lady, even though an old lady, but yet she is a lady. So I cannot, she would feel that I am crossing the line with her modesty. And he just has a thought that how nice it would be if someone else does this job. And as this thought emerges from the bathroom, comes out one more this attendants who wash these bathrooms, right, with a bucket and with a broomstick. She comes out, it's appearing as if she just washed one of those bathrooms. She came out, she noticed this lady coming in, and with this boy carrying the lady, she just stretched her hands and said, Babu, you don't worry, you give me that lady, I will wash her, you don't worry. He just passed her. It appeared very naturally. He just passed that lady to this lady's Aya. The Aya went in, washed her. And meanwhile, this boy comes back. He cleaned that seat. He cleaned the bus. All this without speaking a word to anyone. And uh, the old lady is washed inside. She's brought out. And this boy, brother of ours, goes and picks her up and puts her back in the seat. And he doesn't speak a word. He just goes and again dozes off. Next day, he's woken up. Bus is standing right in front of the hostel. Driver realized that this is Swami's student. He stopped without even asking. And when he gets up, he realizes that he's in front of the hostel, so he has to rush. He is picking up his bag, and everybody is looking at him reverentially, literally folding their hands. And he gets down as he nears the door. Driver also gets up and says, Sairam, sir. And he says, Sairam. And he goes into the hostel. He realizes that it's time for darshan. He rushes to mandir. Till then, Swami had not spoken to him. That day, I was sitting next to him. This boy comes and sits next to me. And then Swami comes out just after week. He's one day late for the vacation, for returning for vacation. Swami comes out to the to third block and looks at the professor who's sitting, Anil Kumar, and he says, do you know where this boy comes from? He asked about me. And professor he responds, yes, Swami, I know him. He comes from so and so place. Then Swami looks at the other boy and says, "Do you know where this boy comes from?" That is the first time Swami is speaking about this boy to him. And because he being Anil Kumar Sab being a professor, he knew where this boy comes. He said, without blink of his eye, he said, "Swami comes from Chennai." Swami said, "No, no, no, no." And Swami looks at this. "But I saw him in Madanapalli last night." And that
Uh-huh.
is when this boy realized, it struck him that that ayah who came in that time out of that bathroom was none other than Swami.
Uh-huh.
To come, Swami
Oh,
goes near him, Swami creates Vibhuti, and that Vibhuti was, I have never smelt a Vibhuti of that order. It was so beautiful. I mean, I can't even describe it.
Swami said, I've seen him in Madanapalli yesterday.
Yes.
Uh,
And it it was, I would say, what do I say? It's divine, that smell of the Vibhuti. And as it was falling into his palm, he makes one line saying that, "Good boy." And very beautifully tells in Tamil, says, "You were feeling that it's a pungent smell." And he's giving his that vibhuti, that beautiful, great smelling vibhuti is flowing into his palms. And this boy is struck. And he looks at me, he looks at this boy and says, "For love, Swami will do anything. Ra." And Swami walks away. Prema kosam Swami ఏదైనా చేస్తాడు. And he walks away. I was stunned. I mean, this is the Lord in Telugu. There's a phrase called Sanakadi Yogindra Janamana Kanjata Kalajanitya Dhyana Karanamulu Brahmendra Mukhya Girvana Koti Kirita Lalitratna Prabha Lanchanamulu. You see, say that hand, even to look at it, Sanakadi Yogindra, all the yogis, it seems, have meditated for thousands of years. And only then they're able to just glimpse at those knuckles of the hand. And Brahma and others have taken, eons to be blessed by that hand. And that hand is coming and washing the stools of a human. Why? Because his kid, his son or his student has taken that first step to do a bit. And
beautiful.
what else do we describe than love for Swami? That love, absolute, pure, unsullied love of the Lord.
I feel people when they ask that, you know, what is the difference of being with Avatar? It is of course, is a grace and blessing. But the most important thing I find is that he allows us to experience these things. You
Yes.
being there at that moment to witness this unfolding is also his grace. Otherwise, so many times Avatar intervenes, but acknowledgements are very difficult for people to get. And many times people will miss it and they may not even appreciate the role of God in our lives. So it's such a beautiful experience that how Bhagwan not only has done it, but he has allowed us to know that he has done it.
Yes,
You know,
right, absolutely. It is sheer grace. Otherwise, we would not even know. Once in Trai, Swami was one of the teachers said, in fact, one of the warden, erstwhile warden, he was mentioning that, "Swami, you have done so much for devotees." I remember Swami saying this. He said, if if you have to quantify all that God has done for a devotee, it is like Sai Gita, the elephant. But what the devotee gets to know is like a mosquito which is trying to sit on that elephant. That is all that the devotee ever knows as to what God has done for you. I'm sure it is the case with each one of us. What we know is too little compared to what he has done. It's, it's
amazing. But even that too little is
yes,
too overwhelming.
absolutely.
It is too overwhelming. Even to hear it is so overwhelming. Comprehending goes beyond the concept. It's so
Yes.
unique. As a student, when you are there, we get so many opportunities to witness Bhagwan in different ways. Do you have any such memories, any such thought, any experience wherein you would have seen him and experienced that love part of Bhagwan? as a student, you know. At that time we may not understand, but today you can think back.
Yes, brother. I mean, it was Swami's sheer grace and love that he gave us an opportunity to be uh, putting up various programs for him. Those programs would go on for days. In fact, Swami would come for that. He would act as if he's coming just for programs. One day he called me. One day, Ugadi day. In fact, he was entering Kulwant Hall, and he looks at me, and it is that I do not know how he does it, but just that one eyebrow goes up and calculate. Yeah, exact like that. Yes, yeah. And you know that he's asking a question, and only you know. You look around, nobody seems to even to know. I got up and said, Swami, no program. So I said, no program? And he was so upset. He tells Warden, if there is no program, then I'm going back. Why am I coming for darshan? It, apparently, Swami was acting as if he's coming for darshan only for watching these programs. So, during these programs, yeah, we had uh, all hues of experiences with the Lord. Absolutely, right from the protecting master, protecting mother, to a guiding guru, to a very strict disciplinarian. I would just probably take a minute or so and mention each of these. You know, one very such funny experience, the protecting mother. We
Please go
had,
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, we had this opportunity to put up these programs, and almost on a daily basis, as I was saying, and so many of our classmates also wanted to take part in these programs. And one such program was about a sage. So this drama is from is based on Chinnakatha, which Swami mentioned many times. Is a king and his minister are walking, and on the other side comes an awkward robe saint. So the king looks at this awkward robe saint, and he prostrates and says, "Oh, great one, bless me." And then uh, uh, the ochre robed saint blesses him, and as the ochre robed saint leaves, this minister asks the king, "Why are you doing this? Why are you prostrating? You are the king of the empire. Why are you prostrating to this man?" He says, "What is the use of this gold which does not even which does not realize the importance of what they have gained? They have left this world. They have renounced the world for something much greater, and it is to that I am prostrating." So, based on this episode, we have built up a drama, and so this prostration of the king is and the dialogue of the saint is an important piece for us to lead to the next scene. I was Yama Dharmaraja, who is like an anchor in this program, is telling to Jiva as to how uh, this king has shown the lesson of humility, and also
So
the great
Jiva would be the individual soul.
individual soul. Yes, Yamadharmaraja is that the Lord who takes away, the Lord of death, basically.
Lord of Death is talking to the individual soul.
Yes, and so the saint happens to be one of my classmates. We never knew that he had a stage fright. Only after he coming on to stage we realized. On the other side is this king and his minister. Now, as these programs are being put up, our vice chancellors were very particular that the quality should be maintained. So he was very particular that we should not make any mistakes in these programs. Instruction was given: do whatever you want, but if you err even a single time, you will not be allowed to come onto stage again.
Oh my God.
And so, vice chancellor would be very keenly observing each and every moment, each and every act of this place. He was sitting next to Swami that day. Fortunately or unfortunately, we were we were very scared, not because that Swami is there, but because Vice Chancellor is so keenly observing the entire flow. Now this boy gets up and he has a mic in his hand. He's looking towards Swami. Swami gives a beautiful smile, that assuring smile, that but protecting mother. He knows that this boy is going to fumble. He kind of assured him with his love, with his expression that don't worry, I'm there. But yet this brother of ours turned around, and that is when he realized the Kulwant halls were full. It was packed to the hilt, and that overwhelmed him completely, that he just froze there with his mic like that. And other side, the king and the minister comes. They look at this sage, and he falls down. he prostrates to the sage, and now the sage is supposed to deliver that important piece of dialogue, which is the connecting piece to the entire sequence of drama that follows. He's so he's so frozen. He's so, the stage fright has taken over him. He looks at the king. He's looking at Swami. Looking at the audience. He's dumb. Like this he was. And below was this person. Below was this king holding his dhoti and pulling him, saying that, tell ya, tell something, tell some dialogue. 1 second passes, 2 second passes, nothing happens. Three, four, nothing happens. He just is looking at the king. Look at Swami, he's dumb. He's just standing there, frozen. And from there, as Yama, I was the anchor. I knew what he would be saying, but I cannot say it because I'm the anchor. I was indicated, tell something. Swami has, till then, Swami was so benevolent to look at him. Swami started looking up. Swami did not want to at least pressurize him with his presence. So this boy, all that he did was he looked at this king and said, Suru, 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 and sat down. What does Suru mean? God alone knows. What do you, I mean, there was an important piece of dialogue which was connecting to the entire program later point of time, and now
He just said Suru, that's all.
Suru, and he sat down. I don't know what else to say. I just looked at this sage who sat down. The king got up and said, king had to cover up something. He said, such beautiful message. And he did that action and he walked away. Now I have to cover up the entire plot. I said, and thus the great message was delivered by this great saint saying, Suru, Suru, Suru. And thus the king was given great knowledge, which was worth lifetime's effort. I covered up something for that moment. Unfortunately or fortunately, our vice chancellor caught this. He wanted to know what exactly is the meaning of this word Suru. Was
Suru
it
means
was it an intentional usage, or was it an unintentional goof up? We did not know what to do. So program got over and Swami was blessing us. This boy, he was so overwhelmed with his mistake that he once he came and he tried to kind of apologize to Swami. Swami said, "Don't worry, sit down, sit down." Swami is trying to play it down, but he's not realizing. He's so overwhelmed with emotions. Second time, again, few minutes later, Vice Chancellor asked this time, "What does Suru mean?" Swami apparently as if he did not hear, and Swami is blessing us. And third time, this boy got up and he broke to Swami. He said, "I'm so sorry." Swami started crying. And it was, the scene was such that now Swami cannot ignore anymore. Vice Chancellor looked up and said, Swami, what does this Suru mean? Why is this boy crying kind of? If it was intentional dialogue, he should not be crying. If it's not unintentional, then why did all these people say it's such a great message and you also laughed? That was the intent of the Vice Chancellor. Swami, what does this Suru mean? Why is all this happening? So, and I thought that is the end. That is the last day of our programs in Kulwanthal. My heart sank. I thought, Swami, I was, all those ending, those parting dialogues were framing up in my mind, in my Telugu poetic. When I was trying to frame in grammatically, saying that we are so thankful for all these programs. And Swami Vice Chancellor looks at me, and then he tells this, Su ante manchi, Ru ante rutamu. He blesses the saint. He blesses the king that, "O king, may you be blessed with that supreme state of Rutam, Rutam, Rutam." That is the message of this word Suru.
only Bhagwan can give this
Only
example.
God, only God can give. That's why I said only God knows what the Suru means. And you should have seen that twinkle in Swami's eyes, and the awe in Vice Chancellor's face. And oh my God, are these students were able to conceive such profound meaning in such small words? And Swami, I go near Swami, said, "Next time, be careful. Next time, Jagra." Said, "Yes, Swami." So all hues of, like, this is one experience where protecting mother. And other time I had my we were literally given 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour advance notice. And one such was, Swami comes to drama, Swami comes to stage, Swami asked for the program. So we were walking from one end to other end. And that is probably one of the longest walks we had. It just takes less than a minute. me and my classmate, we had framed up a program in which I am the antagonist and he's a protagonist, and he talks about why the greatness of India. I talk about why my grandson should be leaving India and going abroad and working, while my friend talks about why he should be staying there because such great land and all that. It's about India, it's about Bharat. Now we start Swami's famous Padyam. We are on the either side of the stage. Me at gents side, his boy at ladies side, and this boy picks up, holds the mic, and says, "Khanda Khandantara Khyatinarjinchama." He is 6 feet tall, quite well built, bass voice. When he said that line, entire Kulanthal went into clapping. I mean, it was an overwhelming voice, literally the overpowering everybody. And Swami
That
was
poetry
also
is Bhagwan's. That poetry is Swami's.
the
Beautiful.
poem, especially the poem is of Swami. Swami was apparently very proud. He looked at Vaishnavas. He said, "See, look at my boys, how good they are." And one first time he recited the first line. Then he looked at me and he started walking from ladies side to gents side. I did not know what to do, so I started walking from gents side to ladies side. So we crossed once. He goes this side again, holds the mic and repeats the same line. So Kulanthal claps again. So again he walked this side. So this repeated 4 times. And I was sensing that something was not right. Fourth time, this boy started walking. Now, fourth time when he recited, instead of clapping, Kulanthal was silent. Swami was also apparently looking up. And I realized that this brother of ours forgot the entire poem after that one particular line. No, what did we do? He started it, but there is no way you can. There's no way you can retract it. So he comes now. This time he is walking from ladies' side towards gents' side. I did not want to cross Swami so many times, so I just stood firm. So he comes up to middle, and he realized that I was not walking. So there's nothing else that he can do. So he turns around, and it happens such a way that he stood right exact opposite, right in front of Swami. Right behind him was Swami sitting. And to the audience, it was as if this boy was holding and speaking, and right behind him was Swami. And as the mic comes to his mouth, Swami, from behind we hear Swami's voice saying, Sangeeta Sahitya Shastriya Vidyalanda Dishaktina Jopina Divya Bhumi. And this boy
Oh, so Swami
Swami
completed a sentence. I had.
prompted every line, and this boy completes. And and everybody, it came out quite well. Everybody is quite appreciative. Then it appeared like it's an intentional dramatic element that we brought in. He's forgot, he's getting
Oh.
act of forgetting also appeared as if we intentionally brought in. So at the end we go to Swami. Swami gives Vibhuti, and as we near Swami calls it like this. So Swami is like this, and we both of us are either side of Swami. And Swami whispers in our ear, "Next time if you forget, I'll kick you." Swami, stop Swami. And but this brother of ours, this friend had such a presence of mind. This is Swami's blessing. No, that grace, divine grace. He tells Swami that, Swami, in life it is like that only, Swami. Every time you are actually the real prompter. We are just the sound box that emits the sound. You are the one who speaks, and we are
He
only.
said that to Bhagwan? He said
He
that
said,
to
he
Swami?
said, he said to Swami, and Swami was so pleased with that.
Very
Swami
good.
started both our cheeks and said, "Good boys, good boys, good boys." I think probably when I look back, probably this is what he wanted us to learn, that who is actually the real speaker. And and the strict disciplinarian portion, where in one of the dramas we made one of the boys, one of our brothers made a passing a, a light-sided comment on one of the character on Yamadharmaraja, on the god of death. Just a passing remark, one line. Swami till then, who was enjoying the play, he just got up and walked away. And then he sent a message. It was such a rude shock to all of us. He sent a message through Vaishnava saying that these are my boys, and when they speak my message, every phrase that they use, every word that they utter, and in fact, he said the way in which they walk is also very, very important. It communicates a deep message about Swami. They should be very careful. They cannot even for a joke, they cannot ridicule anyone. Swami does not like it. Swami is very firm. And from then on, every drama has to be edited. It went on like three filters. It's more about Swami's expectation that we were allowed to learn.
See, living with Avatar is a very big lesson, opportunity certainly, but a very big lesson and a responsibility, because it is not easy, and it gives us a lot of perspective. Unfortunately, at that time, we may not realize it, but the messages he conveys are eternal, always. I remember there was a story, I think it is your time, when Bhagwan physically was not well, and I think before the speech he cured himself or something like that.
Yes, brother, true. Yes,
So,
in fact, yeah.
can you narrate that story to us? Like, that is interesting again, how he
Yes, like
intervenes himself.
the way you said that living with Avatar gives so many perspectives. Like I remember once in Kolant, we had prepared for a program on Ramzan, and we were waiting in Bhajan Hall for Swami to bless us. Swami comes in, and then Swami starts speaking to us. The program was supposed to be there for 20 minutes or 25 minutes. Swami spoke to us almost like 1.5 hours. And he kept speaking about so many things. He explained the secret of Dashavatara, so many beautiful concepts. And he, in between, somewhere around around 1 hour, Swami, Swami is, I was one of those anchors in the program. So Swami started speaking about my speech, and he was explaining as to how I would be how I speak in Telugu, and I took that liberty because he apparently was in a was in a very benevolent mood towards me. So I took the liberty and I asked him. I started crying. He said, "Hey, why are you crying?" I said, "Swami, you should start walking again. Swami, you should walk again."
So,
And
which year was this? Which year was this?
this was in 2006.
Uh-huh.
And he held my hand, and I will come to this curing portion, brother, what you just said. I'm building up to it.
Sure,
So
sure. Go on.
because there's a beautiful conversation that happened. And I, he asked me in that state of emotion, I was crying that, Swami, you should start walking. Swami said, why do you want Swami to walk? I said, Swami, because we feel happy, Swami. I was crying, and when I started crying, all the boys joined me in that state of emotional. If I was supposedly the lead director or whatever, the three four of us. And since we were kind of, our actions were giving a cue to all others also, and they also started crying, and everybody started that entire how that growing emotional growing to Swami happens. That Swami, all boys shout, Swami, please, Swami. And Swami allowed that to die down. And then Swami asked me, why do you want Swami to go? And I said, Swami, you should, because we feel happy. Then Swami said, then that is selfishness. I
Oh,
never
oh.
realized. I never realized that point of time. And then he said, we kept persisting. Then I did not realize that we're actually speaking to God. He can play with any word that you use. I said, Swami, you should walk like those old days, Swami. And then he held my hand and said, then bring back those old devotees. Then I'll walk.
Oh,
So
oh.
uh, when we came back to hostel, there was a long discussion as to what Swami meant by each of these. What was the message that is trying to convey? Now, when I take this episode, brother, and go back to '98 during sports meet, when Swami had a fall, Swami apparently took over one of the brothers that was in my 12th class, and Swami took over one of the boys' problem, and Swami bled profusely. He had a deep wound. Swami explained this entire thing in his speech, and the brothers who were supposed to be assisting Swami, they were somehow this divine will that ended up in different places, and they were not there to hold Swami when Swami had that fall. And all of us started crying, and Swami cured himself. Swami just he he touched his hands and legs. He caressed his hands and legs, and he and his head. And Swami said, "I'm fine, fully fine." And another episode in our 12th, he comes to auditorium. He supposed he wanted to speak to boys, but he had such gruff voice that he was not able to even open up, even to that was all that he could say. And all of us started crying. I remember we were sitting in those second line, and as we were crying, all of us were crying. And he looked at, in fact, I remember he looked at me and he made that face, that why boys are crying, that kind of face. And all of us are crying. And Swami asked for a glass of water. Swami drank water, and he started discourse in such a thundering voice that we were stunned. And then Swami goes on to explain the second or third line. He says, Swami can transform anything. Swami can do anything. I have cured this ailment because of pure love, because of pure selfless love, because of pure selfless love. And God is born only by that. Now, when I compare these two instances, it is left to each one of us to reflect as to what is it. Did we miss something, or did we not realize that what we were actually lacking?
Actually,
And he has grown.
it's a very, very, very deep, and it's a very overwhelming, because I know it sounds like, we failed our master.
True.
Because I remember in the school days, in our time also, once Bhagwan was having some eye problem or something, and all the boys, we started shouting like normally, that Swami, please, please. And Bhagwan, he just said that it's up to you to cure this body.
Wow.
And suddenly, something happened, and the whole hostel went quiet. Everybody just went into the prayer mode, and it was very spontaneous. All the boys went quiet, and within few minutes, Bhagwan was fine.
Wow. Wow.
So, see, the response is very quick. Bhagwan shows that he has already proven it million times, that, he says, this body is yours, you are mine. So keep it as you want. So unfortunately, when you see that he has taken care of these bodies, but we together could not take care of that one body. And it does not mean that we have to go physically there, but it is that we didn't touch him at that time also. We just prayed, and he cured it. It got cured. I cannot say even he cured it. He said, it is your prayer which cured it.
Yes, brother.
Because he always says, I can't cure myself, that will be selfishness, and I don't have selfishness, so I will not do that. So it's a very catch 22 scenario. And he proves it, that it is our prayer. So if he could not cure it at the end, it was practically the failure from our side. And what Bhagwan has told you, that bring back those old days. When he said,
True.
Bhagwan walk like old days, and he said, bring back the old devotees. So it is, oh my God, I don't know. It is quite a shocker, and but a very overwhelming statement. Okay, let me bring another. Let's change a little bit mood, because this is something very serious. Uh, Raju, when we look at Swami, another unique aspect of Bhagwan is that connect with each one on one. How everyone, not only the student, but every devotee, feels that he's my Swami, he's mine. And there is a indirect one-on-one relationship, and that's what Bhagwan has been telling us all his period, that don't have any intermediaries, do not believe on anybody who claims to be my, you know intermediary source or voice. I'm direct. That relationship, unique relationship, he starts putting that seed much earlier in life. So do you have any such experiences for yourself to witness what you have witnessed, that how
Yes,
his
yes.
relationship one on one?
In fact, I remember once one of my relative gave me a letter
Hmm.
to be passed on to Swami. So I was holding the. No, I am Swami once. had told Vice Chancellor sir, he asked me, uh, which pickle you eat. I said, Swami, I like mango pickle. I'm from, even before I could complete it, Swami himself said, see, this boy is from Andhra. They're this Telangana people. They eat lot of spice. But he said, but this boy is very soft, very soft-hearted boy. Why I'm saying this is the Lord knew what sort of material that my mind is made up. So he would not directly uh, come hard on me, but he would communicate the message nevertheless. So this letter was given by one of my relatives. I was holding that letter and I was sitting for Swami to take the letter. And next to me was one more senior brother. He was also holding a letter. Swami comes to him and Swami asks him, whose letter is this? And this boy says, Swami, this is my brother's letter. Whatever. And he says, why are you giving your brother's letter? And he said, Swami, he's my brother. That's why I'm giving. I said, this is not your letter. I said, no, Swami. Then Swami took the letter. I remember took the letter, tore it like this, and threw it back and said, don't be a postman.
Wow.
Heart to heart. Swami is indicating to that boy, heart to heart. Don't be a postman. And all of us, I just threw my letter back, and Swami looked at me. I threw my letter back, and he was like, he was acting as if, where did my letter go? I said, Swami, no letter. And another time, each devotee has a unique relationship with the Lord. We are, I have learned it time and again, we are nobody to judge anyone. And we can come to the alumni days later, but just as during the student days, what I have seen is the one of my classmates, it was his last day. He had studied from his KG to his MTech, 20 years in Bhagavan's portal, 20 years in his institution, and that is his final day. He is leaving the institute next day. He wrote a letter to Swami uh, about whatever, about his relationship with those 20 years. He's holding the letter in Bhajan Hall, and the last bhajan is being sung. He's sitting next to me. That would be his last day as a student. He's sitting next to me, and 20 years, all those memories must be flowing in his mind, and he was literally crying, and tears were rolling down. And there's a last bhajan. The last bhajan is that end is the slow ending is being sung, and after this the harati would be lit, and this boy is crying, and he's requesting Swami to take the letter. And that request slowly and steadily became louder and louder and louder. Harati, you know how Harati, everybody sings Harati. It is all, there is a noise. In that, this boy's prayer was growing stronger and stronger. Literally, he was shouting, Tisco, Tisco. He was telling Swami, please take, please take, please take. And it came to that Om Shanti Shanti. And then, to my shock, this boy went into an abusive mode. He started abusing something. He started using many Telugu words. Take this letter. Take this. He's shouting at Swami.
In Bhajan Hall.
Bhajan hall. It's because he was very close to the not others would not notice it. Not because you know how the instruments, how loud the instruments are, the sound box are. And Swami then, I was shocked. I thought this boy would be dragged away. He would be jailed. So many thoughts were. I was horror stricken. I was like, what is happening? I thought this boy has gone mad. But for me, that was one of the purest interaction between God and his devotee that I have seen. He was abusing, and then Swami looks at him, and Swami says, "What? You think this relationship will end with this one letter? You think this relationship will end just because you're going out of the university? Hey, this is not this lifetime relationship. I don't want to take the letter because you're thanking me. No, this will not end." And he was also equally forceful. It was not, there was no formality. Both of them were not bothered about who was around them. It was pure God and devotee speaking their hearts out. And Swami tells him, "You think I will leave you just because your student days are ending?" And this boy was crying. And then Swami says, You are here. You are mine. This letter, I don't not take the letter because this will. It's as if it's saying a goodbye. So I won't. I do not take the letter. And Swami walked away. I was left stunned. Like, what is the relationship between God and devotee? Only they know. Not none of us can judge. And another time, Swami is coming for darshan, and one of those farmers had come from my place. I mean, from nearby places, nearby village. So in our side, the farmers have a very unique way of wishing the village head. It's like they raise their hand like this. I don't know if you're able to, but you will be seeing it in all
Your
Telangana news
screen is
channels.
getting frozen again and again, so I just don't know whether internet is an issue. So
Oh, is
what
it?
you're gesturing, we can't see, but your
Is
sound is coming fine. I hope the viewers are able to hear you clearly. And
I'm seeing the internet speed to be quite stable, brother.
okay, because here no, we are getting yeah, we can't see your gestures. Now you're back, so you can show the gesture.
No, I okay. I'm sorry. So there's like this. They raise this hand, and it's you must be seeing it's a similar gesture followed even by the Chief Minister of Telangana, KCR. It's
Uh,
like this. They keep doing it has come from the Nizam's days of
yeah,
saluting.
they have a waving everybody. Yeah, they wave
Ah,
the people. Yes.
it's not exactly way, but they do like this. Keep doing this. So it's like kind of salam to the Nizam.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
so that culture. So this particular farmer also comes from this region. So Swami comes for darshan, and I knew them from I could recognize that these people had come from their dress. And Swami is taking letters from the devotees. That gent's turn, Swami comes straight and he takes that right turn towards Genset. So at that turn, as Swami is taking the turn, this farmer from behind, he gets up, he comes running, and he tells Swami, he does like this to Swami, and he does like this to Swami, and he shouts, Anna Bagunavane, Anna. Like, I don't know if I can't translate it in English, but it's a pure colloquial Telangana. He says, Brother, how are you? Are you fine? How are you? I the security guards, the four of them, they were about to pounce on this fellow, and entire Sevadal 4-5 Sevadal got up. They were about to hold him, thrust him to the ground. But everybody were left stunned because Swami turned around and started reacting exactly the same way, same tone, same lingo, and he says he Swami started waving like this and said, "Bagunnani Anna, brother, I am fine, I am fine. How are you?" And I was stunned, brother. This is an illiterate person. He does not know even A of English or A of Telugu, but yet was God. You know, God was standing there for him. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yeah. 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 You're clear. You're clear. You can say now.
Yeah. So God was there for him, answering his pleasantries and responding back to him. Swami was Swami was so lost in for those few seconds, and then Swami asked him about his parents, asked him about how his field, how is especially how his bullocks are, and this fellow, imagine he comes to God and he's telling, one of my bullock is not able to shit properly, and so someone tells him give that particular, that green crop which grows in your backyard, give that to him, and he says, yeah, oh Swami, like it's literally a farmer talking to another farmer. And then Swami turns and walks away. I was left stunned that God has his own relationship with each of his devotees. We are nobody to judge. And one day, Swami asked me to speak out of the blue. That was good. That happens to be the Gujarati New Year day, and all entire Kulanta was filled with Gujaratis. But he wanted me to speak in Telugu, and he said, "You have to." He in fact he used those in the introductory. He ensured that the introducing professor uses words that this boy is a poet in Telugu. And even before I went to the podium, he said, "Use those poems which sound like veena playing." I was
I
quite
want to
confused.
I want to just stop you here. I just want to tell the viewers that when extempo, most of the programs which happen in evening in Kulwant Hall were more or less extempo. Swami would identify the boy at that moment, maybe give him 5 minutes to prepare, just to get his mind rolling. And if he has to, he will select somebody to introduce that, and all of that he will tell the person what to say in the introduction also. So it is a very beautiful thing which happens behind the scene. People may not know that the person who is introducing the program, introducing the speaker, and the speaker what is he speaking, all of that is literally orchestrated by Bhagwan himself. So when you are
Absolutely.
telling that, I wanted to highlight that for viewers to know that Swami literally puts that word, say that he's a poet. So now you please
Yes.
explain that part.
Yes, brother. True. In fact, as you said, the even I was quite surprised as to why the person who is introducing is using those words of praise. But I realized that it apparently looked like Swami's direct instructions. So I went to Swami. Swami indicated that I use this kind of poems. So I went and I spoke. The speech was in Telugu. It was quite okay, and Swami was quite happy. In fact, the photo that you had earlier shown on the screen, that was kind of granted by the Lord after the speech. So I was confused as to why this entire thing happened. Why did I end up speaking in Telugu? Why did the person introduce me in such high words? And why was Swami so happy that he granted me a photograph? Yes, this was the photo. This was after that speech, and two of us spoke that day. So it was me and another brother. Yeah, this is my first speech in the divine presence. I would mention this, brother. So
Hmm.
now the Lord was quite happy with the speech. Now the speech comes to an end, and in fact, Swami grants a photograph, and Swami is very happy. Then we go out of Kulwantha. Swami goes back to residence after darshan. We go out to the hostel, and from the audience, one lady, one auntie, she comes to me, holds my hand, and she's thanking me. She's very emotional. She's talking in beautiful Telugu, and she says, I don't know how to thank you, Babu, but I'm so overwhelmed. I said, what happened, auntie? Why are you thanking me? She said, Nana, I have come from me and my husband, both of us are poets, and we come from this illustrious Telugu family of all poets. We have come to our own state, and when we sat among these Gujaratis, we felt we are foreigners in our own hometown, in our own state. There is nobody who talks around in Telugu. And I had a silent prayer to my Swami that Swami, if you recognize our presence, and because a lot of devotees, we are sitting somewhere in the back, if you recognize our presence, show us, give us a sign, make a poet speak. And that is when I realized that my God, in fact, even when I was speaking, and she tells me one more thing, that those 9 poems that you quoted, they were my favorite poems. Even when I was, as you were saying, it's all extempore. Even when I was speaking, I was not very prepared, but I can't describe how it happens. But I was actually witness to my own thoughts. One poem ends, and then one more poem comes into my mind. It is literally I was someone putting a placard and asking me to read, and I received that poem gets over, explain the meaning, give a context to it, and that then third, fourth, like these 9 poems that came to my mind that day. I thought, wow, this is a divine happening. That I did not realize it then, but when this lady was thanking me, I realized, my God, I was just an instrument. I felt so grateful for the Lord, because I felt so grateful because the Lord allowed me to witness this beautiful interaction between the devotee and the Lord. And somehow I ended up in that situation. It is Swami's grace that he I happened to be in that situation, but it is that
Well,
devotion between.
it's a very beautiful moment, when you seeing your own thoughts,
Absolutely true.
and you are just going with the flow, and when the topic is over, the mind goes blank, right?
It's literally, it's, you do not know what exactly happened. You are a witness to your own performance, but you are not performing.
I think
And
it is
this is,
so. Hmm.
yes, brother, true. This is in fact the experience with all the people who go and stand in front of that avatar. That presence is so overwhelming. We do not know how to describe it, but it's,
Let me show you something. Let me show you something because I thought this will trigger some memory for you. It's a short clip.
इतना प्यार पाया है तुमसे
Do you recall this?
oh yes, it was again the Lord.
It is such a sorry. Oh, sorry. I think I what is happening here. Sorry, I think I would. Sorry about that. Yeah. Are you back? Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, brother.
That was a very beautiful clip. Do you have any memories of that?
I have.
I'm sure you cannot forget that.
I cannot. I have. In fact, we were asked to for the vice chancellor conference. Swami selected four boys to speak in four different languages, and when I was asked to speak in Telugu, my topic was. It was left for me to decide the topic, but Sarah, can you hear me? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Go on, go on. I'm just bringing the picture for you.
Yes, so I was so overwhelmed. I was scared because my age is lesser than the experiences of those vice chancellors. And what would me be speaking about education, about Swami to those people of such great eminence? And I was very scared. And that is when I realized the Lord's presence is the greatest blessing. And we were called that morning. We were called to Purnachandra Hall. Swami called us to his residence, and then he said he will give light tiffin, and that light tiffin ended up being an exhaustive lunch. He said chinna tiffin and almost like 37 items were kept coming one after another, one after another. I was thinking that Swami would review us for our speeches, but it's only later I realized that just sitting in his presence, being there, made everything perfect. And I was not ready. None of, in fact, maybe other three brothers were ready, but I was not ready. I don't know what, I had no clue of what I would go to speak. And then after that, we go to Hanuman, cry that Lord help me out. Then come to Ganesha, cry, help me out. But no response comes. And when I come to Swami, Swami holds my, I was giving that rose to Swami. Swami looks at me and says, Nammakam ledra, Nick, Nammakam les, you don't have faith. I wanted Swami to cajole me, but here was Swami telling me Namakal, and then he tells me, go and stand there. You, who do you think will speak? You go and stand, I will speak. Then I have taken that dictum, that literally that sentence as dictum that I don't come. From then on, I have given up preparing for speeches. I have a broad outline because he said that day that you go and stand, I will speak. So I went and I stood, and then he spoke. Apparently the speech was good, and that is when I came back. He was holding my cheeks, and then he was caressing, and he was telling me, at least now you realize who spoke. At least now you realize. ఇప్పుడైనా తెలిసిందా గురుపుత్రుడు ఎప్పుడైనా తెలిసిందా అట్లీస్ట్ do you realize now? And this Lord and his love, Swami's grace that he allowed it to be captured on that video. And I'm sure, brother, it is his grace and love that flowed even after the student days, even the after the alumni.
Raju, there is a request. I don't know if you remember. Brother Pramod is asking if you remember any of those Telugu padyams, poems. So if you want to, do you recall any of such? Maybe you want to share something, one or two, maybe one
Okay, sure, brother.
out of the
So,
nine padyams.
Oh, okay. Out of the nine padyams, okay, sure. So one out of those nine does one is of that Gajendra crying to the Lord. O Kamalaksha, O Varada, O Pratipaksha Vipaksha Dura Kuyo Kaviyogi Vandya, O Sugunottama, O Sharanaga, Tamaranoka, O Munishwara Manohar, O Munishwara Manohar, Rave Ishwara, Kavave Vara Samrakchinchu Badratmaka. Uh, Gajendra is crying out to the its various descriptions of the Lord. O Kamalaksha, O the lotus eyed one, O Kamalaksha, O Varada, O Patipaksha Vipaksha Dura, the one who is beyond opposites, Uyo Kaviyogi Vandya, the one who is bowed down by the great poets, Sugunottama, the one who is embodiment of the great qualities, Kaviyogi Vandya, Sugunottam, Sharanaga Tamarano Kaha, the one who is ever benevolent to those who seek refuge unto him. O Lord, that Lord, come, come now, come. I have lost all my strength. Come now. This is one. And second, పరుడై ఈశ్వరుడై మహామహిముడై ప్రాదుర్భవస్థాన సంహరణ క్రీడండై త్రిశక్తియుతుడై అంతర్గత జ్యోతి అయి పరమేష్టి ప్రము కామరాది పులకున్ భావింప రాకుండా దుస్తర మార్గమున తేజరిల్లు హరికిన్ తత్వార్తి నైమ్రొక్కెదన్. Here Shuka is praying to Vishnu that he is describing it's a if you take away that Tattvart Naimrokkedan is based, I am seeking you and I am praying to that Lord who is Para, who is Parude who is Para, who is Ishvara, the various qualities he is describing. And there's a it fits exactly to the to our Lord, to the description of Swami. And Swami would, in fact, one poem, uh, since brother had raised this point, I had I should say I don't know how do I phrase it, but I took this poem from one of the Telugu poets who is not very well known, where he is describing about Lord Venkateshwara. Only three people know this. I think it is one is I made one subtle change in the poem. Grammatically, it is no different. I had used this poem in the Chennai speech, Chennai Atrudya Yagim speech. It is Nigama Kavipa Viharan, Nikila Vivada Pahratan, Satachatra Viharana Vitarana, Kapatata with the Nigarana, Kanada with the Taruvarana, Jalaruha Sadrusharna, Sharadisharana, Vidita Ritamura Sona, the Vidivisha, the Nakakirana, Sanayaga Devatarana, Janibarana, Karivara, the Budasharna, Yajavivasa, the Rikarna, Samata Jaladanasana, Saupacharana, Atya Sai Shura to Genamust. So
It look like it sounds like a rap to me. So you're
so
rapping in Telugu. What does that
this
mean?
this is a description of Lord Venkateshwara's form.
Hmm.
Nigama Kapipa Viharana, the one who is essence of the Nigamas, basically of Vedas. So the one who has come to the rescue of that Gajendra who is in distress, the one who has rescued people from the Bhavasagara. Yeah, so like this, there are 18 to 19 descriptions of Lord. So
Hmm.
in this description, it fits entirely when you hear it for the first time, you feel this is written for Swami. Now, when I use this in Chennai speech, many felt that this was written for Swami, and in fact, they appreciated saying that such a beautiful poem is written about Swami and all that. And uh, Swami called, we sat for dinner, and Swami comes to me, and in fact, one of the senior authorities, he raised this thing saying that Swami, such a beautiful poem is recited about Swami. And Swami looks at me and says, who wrote this poem? I said, I told him, but he's that loving mother. He did not want to embarrass me. And even before I could open, he says, whoever wrote this poem, it is written with love. It is written about God. And he says, then he called me. He's like he's holding me, he's caressing me like this, and he's telling me, this boy, he converted that poem with so much of love to Swami. He made and he revealed those changes. He made this change, and this change that became perfectly onto Swami. I was
Oh.
stunned. I thought Swami would not notice it. I was stunned, and then he tells everyone, see, then he started describing, to be honest, when Swami wanted me to speak, I was thinking that I will use this poem and Swami would not understand. No, that is immaturity of my mind. And here was the Lord. And then he started describing the context as to how that poem had come into that poet's mind. It seems that poet
Oh,
had gone to see the Kalyana of Venkateshwara, and when he saw that Kalyanam, that is when he realized the beauty of uh, Venkateshwara, and he wrote this poem. And he looks at me and says, "Sarga cheppana? Did I was I right?" I was
so
speechless. I
sweet.
said, "Swami, what do
So
I tell?
sweet.
What do I tell?"
I
And it,
remember from the Music Boys, Brother Sonam had mentioned it. Bhagwan used to ask them, get new songs. So they had to compose songs. Like you had dramas going on. At that time, it was bhajans composition. Bhagwan would like to see new bhajans every day and all that. So there is a function, and for that, some devotional songs have to be created. So there was an urgency, and what Sonam did was he had a booklet uh, from very old time. It was written by Hariom Sharan. Everybody knows Hariom Sharan ji, and he had written a bhajan which was not so sung before. So he took that bhajan and he modified one paragraph. He added one paragraph, changed little bit, and he presented to Swami as if a new song has come. He changed it. And after the song was presented, Swami came to him and said, I gave this bhajan to Hariom Sharan. Just because you changed few lines doesn't make it yours.
wow,
You know? So his statement was that I gave this bhajan to
yeah,
Hariom Sharan. Just because you change some lines, it doesn't become yours. So it is so beautiful that the play with avatar is so nice. It's a really a blessing to be with in his presence, thinking about him. And I feel the privilege of being with avatar in that presence itself is that great blessing. What do you think?
absolutely, brother. And that blessing, I mean, that presence is, it is bound only by love. Nothing else can. It can be explained only with love. It is like with love, for love, and by love. uh, when we had after the student days, Swami was benevolent that he allowed me to. He gave me an opportunity to be with various groups of devotees who would come for Patyatra, and I would help them for dramas and their organize their Patyatras in some sense. One such Patyatra, 3,300 devotees had come. These devotees had very innocent background, and in fact some of them are coming to Parthi for the first time. So I do not know what prompted me, but I had asked Swami for Padanamaskar, and I said, Swami, please grant Padanamaskar. I do not know where I found that courage. As you're saying, the presence, I mean, it is it is an overwhelming presence that acts on it has its own intelligence. Everything that happens, apparently it looks haphazard, but there is a deep and definite pattern to every instance that happens in that presence. And I asked Swami, please grant Padanamaskar to these 3,300 people. I thought I would be taken to task. And then what reply Swami gave me stunned me. He says,
3,000 people.
3,300, yes, in 2008. 2000, yeah, 2009 beginning, sir, end of 2008. He told me, ask them to have head bath, and ask everybody to have bath and come tomorrow morning, and make them sit in Kulwant Hall. Then the district president also, he also joined, and he
But
said,
he was
Swami,
on the wheelchair at that time, right?
yes, he was on wheelchair. And in fact,
My God.
in 2000, he stopped giving Padana Namaskar
Yes.
to open, I mean, in outside gatherings. And then next day he grants Padana Namaskar to the 3,000 people. And at the end, Swami says, because an innocent prayer was made, I had to keep away that word that I gave in 2000 and granted Padma Namaskar. I was so stunned. And in fact, when you were saying uh, that presence, when Swami was going to those devotees, there were 40, 42 people who played these instruments who would, their job is only to sing about Shiva. They're called Jangamas. So they 24 hours they keep singing about Shiva. and they play these old instruments, and that is a now dying art in Telangana. And when Swami approached these innocent, illiterate villagers, all those 42 started singing bhajan on Shiva. That their old, it's basically it's a Gopala who goes to Shiva and is telling about Krishna. That's the song, the folklore song. It's a folk song where Gopala is visiting Shiva and is describing Krishna to Shiva. And at the end, Krishna, Shiva replies, "Who you think is that Krishna? It is me only in another form." So these people are singing as Swami is coming, and they're like very softly they're humming that song and they're taking Panamaskar. And as Swami approached that 42nd person, Swami quips and says, "So that end that line of who you think is that form, it is me that is coming, in that song." Swami cuts them. Swami quips and says, "Who you think is that? It is this only." And it is take Panamaskar.
Oh, so at
Just
that very moment, he interrupts them and
yes,
oh,
the timing was so
beautiful.
perfect. The message was so profound. No, you just realize that that presence is so overwhelming that it acts on its own. I do not know how to describe it as its own intelligence. And apparently it looked like a foolish prayer from my end, but no, it is not. It is for these devotees. It is their devotion that prompted me. And there is one more. There is one Matadipati, 84-year-old Matadipati, who is sitting in that crowd. I wish I had. I was searching for this photograph for quite long, but I'm not able to get it. Because not a word was spoken between them, between Swami and the Matadipati. But Swami comes to him. This Matadipati was holding the Tridandam. He holds the Tridandam. He looks at Swami. Swami looks at him, and Swami puts his hand on this Matadipati's head. This, and both of them close their eyes. Swami is closing his eyes, and Matadipati is closing his eyes. And it goes on for 2-3 seconds, and Swami opens his eyes, Matadipati opens his eyes. Swami looks at him deeply, and is like, just like this. And Matadipati also not like this. And Swami goes away. Matadipati
So
goes,
both of them close their eyes. Swami has put his hand on top of him,
yes,
and then they open the eyes, and Bhagwan nods. He nods.
he nods.
Hmm.
Then Matadipati goes back after the Patiyatra. He sheds his body. He leaves his body. It was just before leaving his body, he says, "My entire sadhana has touched its pinnacle. I have got clearance." Nobody understood what he was talking about. But after this, when we read his uh, diary and his accounts, it becomes very clear. And you do not know these inner happenings that the Lord is actually working behind the scenes. You are just an instrument, and you just feel grateful for being allowed to be a witness to those instances.
You know, most of the time we kept complaining that Swami is not looking at me. Does he know me or not? He has forgotten me. I think we have wasted so many days and years in these petty thoughts,
Absolutely.
whereas we should have been in gratitude just to be in that proximity.
Absolutely. In fact,
You know?
one day Swami wanted me to speak for one of the occasions. I was sitting diagonally, behind. It was such a position that I was able to see the entire Kulanthal, that the Lord is also seeing, that Swami is also seeing. And on either side of uh, the Lord, or the two boys who are assisting Swami with those letters and other things. And Maharashtra Guru Purnima Gudi Padwa, an engaging drama was going on. It's such a powerful play. It was such an engrossing play that Swami was also engrossed, and these two boys, everybody is engrossed in the play. And those devotees who come from Maharashtra, they have those Gandhi caps, right? And at the end of Kulant Hall was one farmer, was one devotee, old man. He's actually craning his neck and he's trying to look at some. I was able to see it because I was sitting in a position, and that high elevated position, able to see at the end of the Kulant Hall till the end. And Swami is holding a letter in his right hand. Swami is holding a letter, and he wanted to give the letter to the boy who's sitting in right. So Swami just tossed it like this. This boy who was sitting next to Swami He is so engrossed in the drama that he's just lost in the drama. Is lost in the drama. He was looking to the drama,
Oh my God.
And Swami is tossing it to him. Swami realized that this boy's attention is somewhere else. So then Swami tossed it to this boy who was sitting to the left. And this boy, the left boy who was sitting, he realized and he took the letter. And then from there, Swami looks at me, and with his eyes, he makes a sign, who is near. And he's he made it such so it was so subtle but so clear that this boy who's sitting so near, or that devotee at the end of Kulanthor who is craning his neck to look at Swami, who actually is near. Is that, are we just being physical proximity, are we near, or is that boy or is that old man who is sitting at the end, is he near? Who is actually near and who is far? And in Chennai, Swami had taken us for Adruta Mahayajnam. We were sitting all around Swami, and yet I was I was so convinced that we were not close to Swami. We were just physically close to him, but we were not with him. There is some gap. I do not know how to describe. 80 kilometers from my place was a saint who passed away recent few years back. He, you go to him, he looks at you and says, "Ah, commander has sent you," and he starts describing darshan of the Lord. He says, "No,
Commander
commander,
has sent you.
commander is coming now. He will turn left. He will take this letter. He will take that letter. He will speak this to this particular person." No, who is actually near? Are we sitting just around Swami and yet we know nothing about him? Or is that saint who's sitting somewhere there and yet he is always in tune with the Lord? I think this physical proximity, yeah, it is a great enabler provided we use it well. If not, it disillusions you to a great extent. It's a great medium to get to the Lord. We should we should be conscious. We should be grateful that this opportunity is provided, and we should realize the value of it. If not, then I think
Raju, when did this, if I may use the word, this realization or this kind of consciousness which you're talking about dawned on you?
after student to be honest, after student days, I have gone around. I was writing those dramas, and I realized how devoted were those people. There is one such uh, Srikakulam drama where I had written, and there's one particular boy. He is playing Max Muller, the role of Max Muller. He's a doctor by profession, and since he's a doctor by profession, he would not give a damn to anyone who is directing him, except he would only listen to what I say. I had to go all the way from Hyderabad, from Bangalore to Srikakulam, and it's like literally you change Bangalore to Hyderabad one flight, Hyderabad to Srikakulam, Vijayanagaram one more, Visakhapatnam one flight. Then you have to spend 8 to 9 hours to reach to that place, even by flights, and then do this programming, do this direction, if you have to call the word, use the word. I would go like almost once in a fortnight or something like that. But these 15 days, he would literally not pay attention to anyone else. He was a problem maker, so they wanted to fire him, but somehow something kept telling me that no, that we should retain him. So 90 days have passed. They come to Parthi. Drama was put up. Max Muller is giving the dialogue where he says, so the dialogue, he's supposed to deliver the dialogue standing. He's standing and he's delivering the. He should be delivering the dialogue standing, looking at the Lord, saying, "If I have one more birth, please allow me to be born in India." The famous Max Muller line. Instead of that line, so this boy, he falls onto the ground, and if he says, "If I have one more birth, the Lord, allow me to be born here." It also means allow me to be born in Parthi or in Bharat. He's showing to the,
So sweet.
allow me to take birth here. And as his knees hit the ground, Swami became so emotional. It's as if a reservoir broke. It's like, oh, oh, and Swami started crying. And Swami called him. Swami waved his hand, created a very thick chain, gave him. and he kept tapping his knees. And from there, he was look. I was standing right at the back behind the screen. I was watching the interaction between this boy and Swami, and I was not able to understand what is happening. Swami was looking at me and he was telling something like it's as if it's sounding as if I have seen it, I have seen it. Swami tells him to go. This boy dashes from there to he comes dashes all the way, comes to me and hugs me, and say started crying. I said, brother, realize you are in drama. Drama is still going on. Go back and finish your role. After that, we'll talk. But by then the drama has ended, and Swami is quite happy with the entire drama. After the entire thing happened, I asked him what is the interaction that was happening between this boy and Swami. And he said, Anna, I can't tell this to anyone, but 90 days back when you came for the first time, you told us that Swami is not, he's not about Bahya. It is not about how good your costumes are, how good your dialogues are. It's about Bhavam, with what Bhavam you're doing. So I wanted to impress Swami somehow. So 90 days I did circumambulation on my knees around the Srikakulam Mandir. Srikakulam Mandir is as big as their hostel. It is huge. And then he lifted his uh, trousers to show me his knees. I was stunned, brother.
Oh,
No words. There was nothing
oh,
like a kneecap. It's all bruised. It's all battered. Imagine
oh,
85 aged, sorry, weight person doing circumambulation on knees. That amount of weight on knees every day. Morning 3 o'clock, he would get up and and circumambulate for 1.5 hours.
oh my God.
And Swami was telling him when he was putting that chain, he was telling him, I have, even though none of the people have seen outside, 3 o'clock, nobody would be awake. I have seen it. Name Chusanu, name Chusanu. He was telling him to tell me, I have seen him doing, I have seen him doing. I realized what are we? One
Beautiful.
day I was coming, no, I was executive assistant to
Beautiful.
Venu Srinivasan sir, quite a respected, good position. Is chairman of TVS Group. TVS Group is the second largest automotive group in. It has its own automotive group in India. The position uh, has its own charm and its also own power. So I was, why I'm giving this background is to set a context. That I was dropped in Bangalore airport in a chartered flight, and from there I was coming to Parthi in a car, and because by the time I reach, it'll be quite late in the night. So I was telling, I was telling my classmate to pick up some parcel for me, so that the hotel would not be. I mean, I would not be left hungry. Hotels would be closed by the time I reached to Parthi, and restaurants also would be closed. So my classmate picked up some food, basically four chapatis for me. I reached Parthi, and this brother, he was feeling hungry, so he had one chapati, and he gave me that remaining. So he picked up five, he gave the remaining four. I was quite upset that he had my share of chapatis, because I was traveling all the way from Chennai. I thought he should at least be come, because he stays in Parthi. He can as well go home and have. But because of the liberty of being a classmate, he took my chapati. I was quite upset, and this he by then he left. My classmate gave chapatis and he left. I was little upset that this fellow stole my chapatis, and we was it was night around 9:45, around 10 to 9:50. The car was in front of Ganesh gate was closed. So I was holding this chapati packet, and a beggar comes around the car, a lady beggar, and then she's asking me for food. I was so irritated with this entire thing that I dumped that entire three. So in this confusion, one chapati fell down. So the three chapatis, I just dumped it in her hands. To my shock, she did not have the chapati, but she started walking back towards Chitravati lane. I was in a infuriated mood. I thought this she is going to sell to someone. So I thought I'll follow her and catch her red-handed. So I was following her silently, tiptoeing, and then she goes into Chitravati lane, takes a left, little around 100 feet. She goes in, takes a left turn, and there three beggars were lying down. So she wakes up those three, and she gives one chapati to each one. Says, Swami has sent chapatis. Have. And She did not have it. So I tapped her and said, Amma, why are you giving her? Why are you giving all the chapatis to them? What about you? So she holds my hand. She kind of brings me back to that lane, and she's pointing me to the Ganesh gate and says, "Yeah, who you think has lived here? Who you think these eyes have seen? These eyes have seen Satya Sai Baba, the one who has given up his entire life for others. Me begging in front of his gate, can I not give up chapatis, three chapatis, and can I not stay hungry for one night? What is it that I have learned?" I was stunned. Who was actually a beggar? Is it me or is it her? What is the use of all my affluence and her in front of her devotion? It just seemed meaningless. And 85th birthday, brother, thousands, lakhs were seated in the, sorry, 80th 85th birthday, lakhs were seated in the ground. I was uh, I was asked to, I was given opportunity along with Anil Kumar sir and others to make announcements about Swami's uh, welcoming Swami and all that in Telugu because of my Telugu and Swami's absolute grace. Swami had come onto the stage, and I was quite upset that Swami had not spoken to me because I wanted Swami to speak. And Swami is just what? He's just 1 or 2 feet away. As you said, that presence is so important. I never realized it. But I know all the time I was complaining that, Swami, you look at me, I've prepared this, me and Anil Kumar sir and my classmate prepared for about 3 days. Look at me, and all those complaints were going in my head. I was quite upset that he has not spoken to me. But he looked at me, gave a smile. But I was upset that he had not spoken to me. And he left. And so we were asked to come to Mandir. So I was rushing, and those lakhs of devotees, brother. And I enter through the Sai Srinivasa guest house, enter into Prashant Nilayam gate, and there were two old wife and husband, two old couple. And this couple, the husband was taking sand and he was rubbing that sand on his wife's forehead, and he was rubbing on his forehead. I had written this in Sanatan Sardi also. He was rubbing on their forehead, basically. They were rubbing that sand on their foreheads. And I felt quite foolish as to why this fellow is doing that. So I wanted to admonish him that, that this is not a healthy practice. And then he's telling, even before I could start, he tells his wife, he says, "We are too old, you know don't worry, we by the time we crossed from our shed to gate, the entire function in ground got over. People are now coming back. Don't worry. This dust, this sand, it is from those feet which have seen God. This sand is more sacred than the darshan. That's why take this. When I heard that, I just took out my shoes. I took that sand and applied on my forehead, and I realized all the while I was standing next to him, and yet I was complaining. Here are those old devotees, that couple who have not even seen him on that day, and yet they are so satisfied with the sand of the devotees that have come to see him.
Beautiful. It's
What
very
is
humbling. Very humbling.
absolutely humbling, brother. I mean,
There was, I remember one incident happened right in front of Mandir. When we come for darshan, we used to always leave our slippers right outside and then run
yes.
inside. Now they have made shelves and all that. Before it was not shelved, it was all kept. So, and most of the time, the slippers won't be in an organized manner because we'll just throw our slippers and run for darshan, right? So, all our slippers were freely, like it will be putting, and many times we will even lose the slippers, either they get exchanged or whatever. So one day it happened like we were walking back for some work and we saw a Sikh boy, Sardar, a young Sardar boy. He was kind of organizing the chappals. So a brother saw that and he felt that, there is some naughty thought came, is he stealing the chappals or what is he trying to do? Because nobody does anything there, right? So they are
Yes.
wondering like, what is he trying to do there? And they stopped and asked him that, what are you doing? And that boy very humbly got up, very like as if he was embarrassed or shy that somebody has watched him do that. So he said, "I'm sorry, I was just organizing it." He said, "Why are you organizing?" He's talking in a Hindi, Punjabi Hindi. He says, "Why are you organizing it?" He said, "I am my faith, like Sikhism faith." He said, "Our in our we taught that the highest service we do in our gurudwaras is to keep the shoes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Wow.
shoe management of shoe is the service, the higher service. If you want to do a higher service, they go and do the shoe. Like picking up anybody's shoe is humility. So he
Wow.
says that I've learned that keeping the shoe is the highest service, and these are the shoes, slippers of the students of Bhagwan. And
Wow.
and he made a very very touching statement. He said, "I don't have the fortune like these boys, so I don't know if I get a chance to even touch Swami." Saying these boys are there, and if I touch their slippers,
Yeah.
it is difficult even to comprehend what we had, and what we have lost.
Yes, brother. True.
Raju, you brought it very emotional closing. Uh, what I would suggest you is that request you, we will continue our journey because time is also up, and I don't want to put an abrupt end to this conversation. You have really touched upon some beautiful moments of Avatar. You have really brought us back those beautiful memories.
Yes, brother. True. And just to end our conversation, I think we are we are his property. He has control on everything that we do. Everything. On 27th of April 2011, I have I just felt that the body of the Lord has been sent back to Mother Earth, and there is nothing that is left in the world to be lived for. So I was dropped back in Bangalore after that harrowing experience of 3 days, 24 to 27th. And night around 11:30, it was in Hebagodi. We stay in Daddy's Garden villas, and there is a lake in front of the villa. So I wanted to end my life. I started walking into that lake. I walked and walked. I remember water was, when I when you lose an eye, if you have one eye and you lose it, you just don't lose an eye. You lose the world. That Swami who meant everything for us, that form which meant everything, that disappeared, and along with that, world seemed meaningless. So I just started walking into the lake with that one thought that Lord, let this meaningless world end. And I remember the level of water is going up slowly, 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 and when it touched almost my knee, my nose, my nostrils, I lost my consciousness. I did not know what happened, but when I woke up, it was in my room. There was nobody that day. My wife and my wife had just delivered a baby, so I was all alone. She had delivered a baby in her hometown, so she was away. I was all alone in the drawing room, and 3 o'clock in the morning, I opened my eyes, and all those leaves and that my clothes were wet. It was apparently I was brought back, and I was there lying in that drawing room. I opened my eyes and I hear a voice which says, "This is not the end. This is not the end." So I do not know what it means, but maybe as time went on, started realizing that the Lord is much more beyond. He is much more than that form. Is much beyond than that 5 feet 3 inches. No day, no interaction goes without him.
Beautiful. Raju, if Swami willing, I would love to have you again. And I think we have a lot we can talk about Bhagwan. It will be a joy. And I'm sure devotees would love to hear your stories and your perspective on Bhagwan more. So maybe next week or something, if Swami willing, we'll continue our journey. I
Sure.
don't want to stop this because time is important, and I would request you to please come back again, and we'll have one-on-one again. And we'll also continue, as just to tell the viewers, we'll also continue, hopefully and prayerfully with Bhagwan's grace, our session on Bhukti series. We'll take care of that. So hopefully we'll get more brothers to join in, and we'll take care of that. So thank you so much, Raju. Any final words before we close for today?
There's that Telugu poem which Swami says, which Radha told Krishna. I would only recite that. He says, "ఏ హృదయమును ఒసగితివో ఈశనాకు మగిడి దానిని అర్పింతు ఓ మహితమూర్తి. అరే వేరేమి తెత్తు నీ అర్చనకు నేను అంజలి ఘటింతును అందుకోవయ్య నీవు." Oh Lord, what can I bring to worship you and offer you other than that heart that you have given me? I offer that to you. I have nothing else.
Thank you, Vaya. Hey, just a question had come from Sister Annapurna. She said, if you can tell that Telugu line which Swami said to that people, 42nd person, that I am the same Shiva who came as Krishna. So, do you recall that Telugu word?
That line goes as Gollavaaramu Memu, Pillavaaramu Memu. The song starts with Golla, we are Gollas, we are Gopalas, we are the children of the Lord. Pillavaaramu Memu. Chusi Vachitimi Nadu, Chusi Vachitimi Nedu. We have seen it that time, we are telling you now. Then Shiva's line, it says, Gollavaaralu Kadu, Miru na Pillavaru. You are not Gollas, you are not Gopalas, you are my own children. చూడలేదు నాడు చూసినారు నేడు. You have never seen then, you are seeing me now. ఆ పిల్లవాడే ఈ పిల్లవాడు, ఆ ఇంటివాడే ఈ ఇంటివాడు. That boy is this boy, that person of that house, that householder is this householder. ఆ ఇంటివాడే ఈ ఇంటివాడు, ఆ పిల్లవాడే ఈ పిల్లవాడు, ఆ చిన్ని కృష్ణుడే ఈ. Then that is where Swami Kattan says, E Satya Sai, he said. So that little Krishna is actually, he says, A Chitti Krishnude, A Chinni Krishnude, E Maheshwarudu, something it goes. But that is where Swami Kattan says, A Chinni Krishnude, E. This is Satya Sai. This Satya
So
Sai.
sweet. So sweet. Thank you, brother. And hopefully
Thank you.
we'll continue this series more. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And hopefully, prayerfully, we'll see you again next week with another continued series of his story. Sai Ram, brother.
Saram.